Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join our webinar today. Today we'll be going over contract compliance webinar and how to secure city contracts and achieve contract compliance. My name is Rhonda Allen, and I am the compliance manager for the Office of Supplier Diversity. And today we'll talk about 35% DBE goal, the waivers, contract compliance, DBE form requirements, B2G Now, and upcoming events that we have in our office. This is just information about our compliance team. This PowerPoint will be shared, and we will also post a video eventually on our YouTube channel for it. But our office has our director, Ms. Shawn. As I said, I'm Rhonda, and I have four compliance officers on our team, and they are all assigned to contracts that will have DBE requirements. And right now, I will turn it over to Robert Watts, who will talk about the DBE goal. Robert? Okay, I apologize, you all. I'll read over this one. So the city has a 30 overall equity goal of 35% contracts, and that 35% of DBE participation for contracts. And it's for all public spending or private projects that utilize public funding and or incentives. This is outside of the set aside. Of course, this is for any contract that is not going through a set aside. It does have a 35% goal. Also, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, you can leave any questions or comments in the chat and I will answer them all at the end. Okay, and next I'll speak about DBE waivers. So the CAO may waive the equity goal on a city contract upon request. The request must be submitted to the CAO in writing and must detail the reasons for the request. No waiver shall be granted until the Office of Supplier Diversity reviews the request, sends the form to the CAO office for review, and provides the CEO with a written recommendation. Waivers may be requested from Office of Supplier Diversity. I really do encourage everyone to go to this link whenever you get the slideshow. We publicize anything that was approved for a waiver. Some of the things are very small, like just you might need to take a class or like a special cleaning certificate is needed. But if there's no DBEs that are listed, we do approve a waiver. And it's just an opportunity for your company to see how you can grow and do other things with your business. Okay, and I'll talk about contract compliance. So our compliance team is responsible for monitoring and reporting DBE participation in city contracts to ensure that DBE firms receive their fair share of procurement opportunities. Monitoring activities may include, but are not limited to, the following: pre-bids and proposal meetings, pre-construction meetings, committee evaluations, DBE validations, site visits, and monthly audits. We will speak on some of these, but for pre-bids, I do encourage your business to make sure you submit on BRAS the DBE interest form. For anything that has a DBE requirement, the vendors do look at their list if they're looking for specific vendors to help out for the contract. And you can go to these meetings and also network if they don't have a DBE yet, get to introduce your company, what you can do to help them for their proposal. At proposal meetings, we do score RFPs or RFQs based off DBE participation. I highly encourage if someone's asking you for an RFP to be their DBE, that you have your information in the proposal, showing how they'll support you, showing what work you're going to be doing for them, because they do get points to show their support for their subcontractors. And for pre-construction meetings, also if you're a DB or even the prime, at that time we're just restating what the goal that is being made, and any subcontractors that are on the contract. So it's good to know the rules that we're going to require you to have as far as like the monitoring and staying in contact with our office. And the committee evaluations or go back to the proposal, just making sure that you're involved in any of these proposals to help have a stronger RFP. And we'll talk about the DBE validations and monthly audits, but site visits, we have started those back. Our office for as far as compliance, if someone has you listed on the forms to do a certain type of work, please make sure that that's the work you're doing, and it has to be work that you're certified in. If you're a construction firm that's certified in sidewalk or demo, someone cannot put you down for like janitorial, because if you're not certified in that, it's not going to count towards the DBE goal. And we do go on site to just make sure that, hey, you have this person listed, they're doing that work, that you're doing what you knew you were doing, and someone else isn't doing it for you. And also we'll go with the DBE forms. And this part is very important because we have new forms that will roll out the very beginning of September. These will all be fillable online. They can only be filled online or in Adobe, because it will calculate the amounts for you. So the beginning of the process is the DBE Compliance Form 1, which is the responsiveness form. And when you get this presentation, the missing pages are all forms that are just for extra signatures or subs. So the DBE Form 1 looks like this. And this is prior to any award. You have to complete it. To ensure proper calculations, the forms must be completed electronically. And you can submit these via the BRAS portal or in person for purchasing, or you just submit it to who the contract manager is for that department. So here you will put I'll just put examples and highlights of what has to be filled out. Here you will put the solicitation number, the project name, the date that you filled out this form, the name of the company, like who's going to be the main contact for the company. You have to check either you're going to commit to the goal, or you're unable to meet the goal, but you're committing to a minimum of and whatever percent you're putting. If you check this, you will have to make sure you have the Form 2. Anytime you're submitting for something, if you're selecting this and you put a lower goal and you do not do a Form 2, which is a good faith efforts form, we will go over that. But if you don't submit that form with a lower goal, we will not recommend the contract to move forward, because we want to see why you cannot meet the goal. So this example, they're saying they're meeting the goal. This is the total amount that they're bidding for. This is the total amount that will go towards the DBE. Whoever's filling out this form, they will put their name, their title for the company, phone number, and email address. On page 2, you're just again putting the solicitation, the bidder proposal information. You would have to put the name of the DBE firm. Now, some firms have doing business as. Whatever you're certified under is what has to be listed here for us to be able to find you. And then the tier contractor, tier 1 just means you're reporting directly to the prime contractor. Tier 2 is reporting to tier 1, and tier 3 is reporting to tier 2. The certification that you have, either SLDBE or LEUCP, and then the description or scope of work. Each section, you have to list each thing you're doing. Like this, number 2, I have 3 things listed: concrete sidewalk installation, landscaping, and demo, because you need to break it down, say how much is going for each, and it will calculate for you the percentage for that. At the very end, it should total the amount. So they broke down everything here. The total amount matches page 1, and the percent will match from page 1. And you will list any DBE firms here, and like I said, there is extra pages that is on there. So page 3, if you're a supplier, you would have your firm listed, the DBE firm here, and just note that if you're supplying only, 60% is the only thing you can count towards the value of the DBE percentage. You cannot calculate 100% of supplies. And then this is very important. The DBE affirmation, if a prime has you on listed, you should be able to see this whole document. Sometimes they would send like, oh, here's a copy, can you just sign this page? But you need to be able to see this page. I'm sorry. This page here, page 2, you want to see what your company is listed for and what they have you for and the amount that they have you for. This is for no confusion later, or if they say, oh, I didn't know I was listed, and you should be able to sign who's authorizing to sign it and your date so that you know that you were listed for this contract. And then on the last page, prime vendors will list any 9 DBE subcontractors so that we know, like, if you're not meeting 35% and you have so many people here, we're checking their scope of work, because there's no way you should be having 2%, but then you have all these other people listed that you say you can't meet the goal. So they do have to list this, especially if they're not making the goal. And then again, print the name, sign, title, and the date. Okay, so that's the Form 1. The next one is the Form 2, which, like I said, is the documentation of good faith efforts. And it is always required if you're stating you're not meeting the goal. Prior to the award of any city contract, good faith efforts are required to be made and demonstrated on all City of New Orleans contracts. If you have not attained the amount of DBE participation to meet the goal, you're required to complete and submit this form along with all required documentation. This form is very important if you're submitting as a prime, or even if you're a sub on here on a contract, if they're stating they're not meeting a goal. We will recommend or not recommend a contract go forward based on this form. Again, here you will put the bid or RFP information number, the proposal amount, the date, the title of the contract, and the name of the prime. For this example, I clicked that they were not going to meet the goal. And you have to put, okay, I'm not meeting the goal, but this is the amount. You have to put the percent that you're saying you will meet. And again, sign, print your name and the title. This checklist is what we helping you to say, hey, you need to make sure you do these things, that because we're going to look at it. You listed specific portions of work to be identified for the subcontracting. You notified certified DBs of the contracting opportunities. They can do this through our office. On our website, there is a form they can fill out, and it comes to us, and we post the opportunity on our public website and also in B2G, and it sends out like a mass email to people who are certified in those specialties. You can also, they have like contract journals or newspaper, like online communities. They can also post it there, and they can send it to us to show as proof. And then initial solicitation and follow-up. We do want to see that you reached out to people and how you followed up with it. And I'll show you on the next few pages for that. So page 2, this is where they're listing the scope of work that they're saying can go to a subcontractor. For the example, I put security services, gave an estimate. I know sometimes with RFPs or RFQs, you don't always have an amount, but you could put a good estimate or a percent that you think will go towards it. And then, so you would list any of those subcontracting opportunities here. Then how did you notify? Did you attend all pre-bids and outreach meetings? This example says no. You should definitely attend if you're looking for outreach and sharing, so you know you can talk to any DBE subs that came to those meetings. And did you submit a subcontracting opportunity on our webpage? This is what I was speaking about. Yes, and then they would put the date that they submitted, because we can go pull it up on our website to check. And then identify publications in which announcements or notifications were placed and published. So this one example is NA. When we do our checklist, this is a negative because you didn't come to this, you didn't post any other things. So you have to do the maximum. You have to really try to share the opportunity before we just say, okay, we agree there's no one that can do it. And then on page 3, here you will list every DBE that you contacted, their phone number, the scope of work that you contacted them for, the date that you did that, what was the result of it? Did they respond? This one said unable to do the work. Someone said we will submit a quote. And then if there was no response, did you follow up? And if so, what is the date? How did you follow up? And did you ever receive a quote? This example is all no, but here they said they were unable to do work. So you should have a copy of an email response that they said they were not able to do it. This is just when negotiating in good faith, where price competitiveness is not the reason for rejection, complete all fields below and provide a copy of the written rejection notice, including the reason for rejection to the rejected DBE firm. A meeting may be held with the rejected DBEs if requested to discuss the rejection, and you must attach a copy of the notice. So this is only if it's not the reason for rejection, you need to state why. You need to make sure you let the DBE know why. And then where price competitiveness is the reason for rejection, you have to complete all the fields and attach copies of all DBEs and non-DBE quotes. So if someone comes in really, really high, but you have someone that's lower, they need to just show proof of that. And then page 5 is very important also. I gave an example for this, but I said I have attached a copy of the opportunity we posted to the website. I reached out to 3 other DBE vendors. One did not respond. One said they cannot do the scope of work, and I have attached that email. The last one said they would submit a quote and didn't respond after a follow-up. I have also included that email below. And then I just made a note here that a very detailed description needs to be here if you are not meeting the 35%. So this is how it should, if you did all these things, you should attach every email you sent, every documented response that you have to show that you actually have tried. If you just say, no DBEs found, but you have nothing attached, we can find the DBEs, we would not accept that. Okay. And then the next form is the compliance form 3, which is the DBE participation plan. This is submitted for RFPs or RFQs, and they have to be with your proposal. Sometimes people they forget this form and it can be deemed non-responsive. You have to have this form into your proposal. And on it you will have the RFP or RFQ number, the date you filled it out, description, the name. Again, you're going to say, am I committing to the goal? Or if I'm not committing to the goal. And then again, if you are not committing to the goal, you have to have the form 2 explaining why. For this example, I put if known, because again, I know for RFPs and RFQs, you don't always have a definite amount. But you should at least maybe have a percent, or sometimes we will accept TBD if we know that you are not putting dollar amounts yet. I'm sorry, I want to go back and read one thing to y'all in this section. Every DBE firm listed must be utilized on the project. To remove and or replace a firm, you must submit a modification request, and we will go over that, and receive approval from our office to remove or replace the firm. The listed firms must have a current and active certification for the given scope of work, and a lack of certification for the provided scope will result in no DBE credit for these services. So we have seen where people will put a DBE firm, the firm they say they're certified in like Seattle, for example, and it's not an SLDB or LUCP, it would not count. You have to be certified with one of those 2 for us to count towards it. And when you are scored for the committee meeting, we will make a note that the DBE listed is not certified under SLDBE or LUCP. So that's important to know. They have to be certified in the scope of work that's listed to be able to count. And then again, for those, you want to make sure that you know you're being listed on this proposal, you're signing, authorizing that in the date. And the prime is just listing those scopes of work that they identified for subcontractors and the percent. They will also have, the prime also has to list past performance I gave examples to the New Orleans, Baton Rouge, the project name, and what they achieved. We do check this, and we also go into our system on our own and see past payments from the city, how much they pay to their subs. We do make note if they have a past history of not paying their subs on time or of not keeping up with the DBE goal. And then they will also do a narrative. This example I gave was our company had partnered with 3 DBEs in our last project and was able to exceed the goal. We will work directly with Test DBE Inc. and we'll have project check-ins to confirm we're on schedule to meet or exceed the goal. This is just important to know that we want to make sure that you're in contact with your DBEs, maybe state how you're going to support them, even just saying the check-ins or sending regular payment information from your subs. This is how we just make sure that you're stating you're going to stay on track. Okay. Okay, and then the DBE Form 4, which is the subcontractor modification request. So this is what any prime will submit at any time if they are asking to any type of modification to a subcontractor. Like it says here, the modification includes but is not limited to replacement, termination, or scope % of work changes. This form, when they send it, they should email our office or their compliance officer and email it to you, whoever they're asking for the changes to be made. You only have 3 days to respond to it if you don't agree, or even you can even say I agree, but we only have a 3-day window where if you don't agree, you're sending a response stating why you don't agree, or if you're disputing any of the things that's listed on this form. But you should always be notified as if this form is being submitted. And then there's a note on here that if they're asking to change the percentage, they still have to do the good faith effort to replace DBE subcontractors or suppliers who are unable to perform on the project with another DBE. And it's the same criteria used in the beginning of the contract. They have to put the date of request, and this is the date that the email should come to the DBE subcontractor. The RFP, they might have a contract number by then. It could be any of those numbers here, the name of the project, the prime who's filling this out, the original contract amount, and the current contract amount. They will put, they're either adding, replacing, terminating, or other, which is scope or percentage of work change. Here they would have to list their reason for a request, including documented evidence, and then if other, please define the scope or percentage of work change. And if a subcontractor has been added to the project, you must identify the reason and any effects on the contract scope or contract value of the original DBE subcontractors. This example, I just put there adding DBE to help with hauling of tree debris. On page 2, they have to fill out this table for all modification requests except add. So they didn't fill it out because they were just adding someone, and you would just skip to section 2 for that. But if you were modifying, they do have to give detailed information here. For just adding, they're listing the subcontractor, the scope of work, the value, and the percent, because we're just going to check this person as a DBE, making sure everything's okay to add them. And again, like I said, just to make sure if this form ever comes, if you disagree for any reason, or even if you agree, just send an email. You can send an official email response, like a letter attached, or you can just simply respond, received. We've had people who they couldn't complete the scope of work because of many reasons. They'll just say, I'm sorry, the scheduling didn't work with me. I'm fine with it, I agree. Once we approve something, you might see a change in BTG, so we just want to make sure that you're aware before something is done. Okay, and then the last form in this whole process is the DBE Compliance Form 6, and this is filled out anytime there's a contract amendment or a change order. And it's very similar to the Form 1. The only difference is you need to make sure you're including the change in the contract amount If it's a time-only amendment, if the department actually fill it out, you would just put 0 here. And as long as you're not changing anything else, but if you're changing the amount for this example, I just put 20,000 more. And then you need to make sure this percentage is being the same as before or adding to it. So I put 40% for this example. And it's the same, you're just listing who's doing what, the DBEs that you're using, their tiers, and the amount. Like I said, some of this will calculate for you. I gave a supplier example for this one, and this is a good example to view how it will calculate 60% of their total value for suppliers. Again, if the non-DBEs were affected by the change order. And I'll take a break to give it to Jeremy so he can speak about DBE validation. And just don't forget to drop any questions you may have so we can answer at the end.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeremy Ordon. I am a DBE compliance officer with the Office Supply Diversity, representing the city of New Orleans, and I will be going over the DBE validation for each contract. If you can move forward, please. Thank you. So I want to emphasize the importance of making sure you complete your DBE compliance form in its entirety, with as much detail and precision as you possibly can. I'm asking this because this is a DBE validation that we use to basically give how the DBE percentage will be met for the contract in the foreseeable future. So I'll be taking it line by line and giving you exactly where we're pulling this from, this information. So at the beginning, there's a solicitation number. This is where we ask you to put your contract number, and this is where we'll plug in that solicitation number so we can track it in our system and it'll match on BRAS. A project description, basically what is the city hiring you for, and making sure that is detailed and matches everything that's being performed for the scope of work of that project. The date will be the current date of completion of this DBE validation. The department is the sponsoring department that will be basically holding the contract and making sure everything is in order. The OSD compliance officer would be that respected DBE compliance officer, which would be either me or any other one of the compliance officers with the Office Supply Diversity. The DBE commitment, you can see that the DBE goal is set to 35% as always. Uh, the DBE goal will never change unless made otherwise, but as of now, the DBE goal is set at 35%. Next to that would be the contract value. This is where the total contract value would be plugged in. And then below that is the DBE commitment. So we set it at 35%. It can either go up or down. We like to keep note of those sorts of things. So we actually change that number to either be below 35 or above 35% commitment. And this is based off of what the vendor puts in himself. The DBE contract value is the percentage that you utilize. The DBE percentage uh is, oh, I'm sorry. The DBE contract value is the percentage that you take and plug in based off of the overall contract value. Um, this is the dollar amount that we set in our system to track how payments are going to be made to the DBE subcontractors. And then also it will showcase what the final amount should be for the contract goal. Moving on to the OSD-DBE compliance review. Now there's 3 sections here. Based off of what circumstances the DBE goal is set on, we utilize the response as necessary. So we'll go through the first response. The bidder slash respondent committed to the goal. The Office of Supply Diversity recommends that the city enters into contract negotiations with Contractors LLC on the project. This selection is if the DBE goal is committed to, which is 35% or higher. And this is the one that honestly we would want most contractors to fall into. Uh, Now the second portion, uh, which I will read out right now, the bidder respondent did not meet the goal, but did demonstrate the required minimum goal, good faith efforts to meet the goal. While the DBE participation does not rise to the original commitment and DBE goal of 35% for participation by certified DBE firms, the Contractors LLC provide documentation demonstrating sufficient good faith efforts to meet the goal. The Office of Supply Diversity recommends the city enter into contract negotiation with Contractor LLC or the vendor's name on the project. So the second option is picked if the DBE goal falls below the 35% threshold. Um, and the Office Supply Diversity finds that the DB, not the DB, the prime vendor put enough effort, good faith efforts to find DBE subcontractor participation on the project, um, but did fail. We really need a detailed explanation on the DBE compliance form 2 on why they could not meet the DBE goal. And along with that explanation, it is important to have evidence, any documentation showcasing that you reached out to subs, that you submitted a DBE's opportunity, or made any kind of public notification to subcontractors that are certified in the DBE program. Lastly, we will go through the last response here, which would be us denying the DBE compliance form. The bidder slash respondent did not meet the goal and did not demonstrate the required good faith efforts to meet the goal. After a comprehensive review of the required post-bid DBE compliance paperwork submitted by the vendor, Office Supply Diversity has determined the bidder did not demonstrate the minimum good faith efforts required to reach the goal and therefore is not responsive to the bid requirements set forth in the aforementioned solicitation. The Office Supply Diversity does not recommend the City of New Orleans enter into contract negotiation with this vendor on this project. So this last response is given when vendors does not provide sufficient evidence on why they couldn't meet the DBE goal threshold. Um, and it's pretty straightforward. If you didn't submit any documentation that goes along with the explanation, or you didn't really put an effort out to meet with DBEs, call DBEs, email them, put it DBE opportunities, that ultimately affects how we review your DBE compliance form. Uh, Finally, at the bottom, this is the DBE participation summary, which basically goes through the DBE subcontractors by name, the scopes of work that they will be performing, the contract value, and then the DBE percentage for the contract. They are separated in sections so we can specifically see what scopes of work each DBE subcontractor will be performing. And then below that summary is actually the contact information for the DBE compliance officer that will be performing, will help you in reaching your DBE goals. Now we'll go on to the B2G Now system and how to show daily compliance, or not daily, monthly compliance with the City of New Orleans. The system is accessible to all firms doing business with the City of New Orleans Aviation Board, and Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans. The B2G Now system is used to report DBE participation, and monthly audit reports are required from each contractor and subcontractor. It is important that you know that we have a deadline of 15 days to log into B2G Now and to report your audits, and get that confirmed. And it must be completed in a timely manner, or it will negatively impact any future contracts you may have with the city of New Orleans. Key features: electronic SLDBE certification application process, including new applications and renewal applications; automated communications with the contractors via email regarding compliance issues; prime submission of subcontractor utilization reports with automated tracking of contract goals and participation; enhanced online certified directory with keyword search compatibilities. So this page here is the main page where once you enter in the link, it will pop up, and this is where you will log in. You'll see at the bottom that you can actually do a vendor search and find all of our DBEs that are registered in our program, and it can be based on the scopes of work that can be performed, or by name as well. Uh, you can also apply for the certification at the bottom, and then you can also set up your account at the bottom with the account lookup, and that's how you begin creating your own personal account for the B2G Now system. This page, once you logged in, you'll go here to submit your monthly audits. That will pop up in the dashboard in the top, and then any other features where you can search your contracts on the left side of the screen, and then any renewals or applying for certification you can find on the top right. This is where you'll come to handle any business when it comes to the City of New Orleans DBE program. And it's important that you get used to utilizing the B2G Now program. Uh, but if you do have any issues or difficulties, you can reach out to your compliance officer, and she will sit down with you to get you a better handling on how to show compliance with the City of New Orleans. This page is where you'll see how to enter in your audits, and any potential audits that you may be missing. Uh, we can see at the top left, there is the date of the beginning of the contract and when the contract is projected to end. To the right of the screen, you can see the status of the contract, which would be either open or closed based on if the contract is still ongoing or not. The current award amount, which is or the current award, which showcases also the DBE percentage, what the goal should be, where the goal is sitting at, and then the total paid amount for the contract overall. So, oh, I was not finished. Oh, sorry about that, everyone. So the DBE goal that you need to meet will be next to the goals section, which is 0%. The percent credit is how much at that time of at that moment and day of how much the DB percentage you've achieved so far. Um, and then the total paid amount is how much the prime vendor received. And then the for credit amount would be how much did the DBE subcontractor receive. Moving on to the compliance audit list, we can go by column. The audit period is basically showcasing what month uh, the audit is based off of. So, for instance, February 2025, you will be reporting your payments of the previous month. You will receive the February 2025 audit at the 1st of March, but you will be entering all payments from February 2025 into that audit. Um, Moving over to the right, you'll see that it says paid to prime. That's the section where the prime contractor of the contract will enter in the dollar amount they received from the city. And then after that would be the reported by prime. The prime will enter in how much the DBE subcontractor received for this particular contract on that month. Then moving on to the right, the subcontractor must confirm their payments by reviewing thoroughly how much they received for that month. They can either confirm it or report a discrepancy. Discrepancy basically says that the DBE subcontractor did not receive that dollar amount, and there needs to be a further investigation by the DBE compliance officer to determine what dollar amount is accurate so the system can keep track with the DBE goal percentage. That's all I have when it comes to the B2G. Giving it along to Rhonda.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. So now just to wrap up again, please remember to leave any questions in the Q&A or the chat. This is just a page that shows you where you can find opportunities. We have our city website where we post information that people might submit. And then also this will link you to BRASS, where you can see any bids, RFPs, and RFQs that are posted. And then we also have the partnering agencies. Like I said, these links are clickable. Whenever you see this, whenever you get this, you will be able to click on these links. And I suggest just checking on those regularly to see what's posted. And then our resources and support. For the set aside program, we do have a website that this links to. And then we've also listed our information, the B2G Now portal, borough purchasing, and then the BRASS supplier portal.